Hello and welcome to Angel to Exit, the process. I'm your host, Fred Cohen, and today we're going to be talking about the process of getting, using, and sustaining angel funding. There are different types of angels and angel groups. The evolution of angel funding so far started with individuals. With individuals, you have a personal discussion that leads to an agreement to move forward. Typically becomes a joint effort between the individual that's providing the funding and the business, and they move forward together. Next came small groups, and there are plenty of small group angel investors out there, typically from 3 to 10 angels. They get together periodically, maybe quarterly or monthly, sometimes more often, and they pool resources. Very often, they jointly agree to fund projects with prorated shares per the investment they make. Next, we have large groups, typically anywhere up to 100 angels who meet periodically and pool resources. Similar to the small groups, except they typically don't all invest in any given opportunity. Usually subsets fund a given offer, but they share deal flow. So they're bringing in deal flow. They may also share due diligence. As they get larger, they may move into syndication. Syndication is a case where you have multiple large groups, typically at different cities or locations, sometimes regional or even global. They'll have deal flow with multiple locations. So the people coming into pitch, for example, will pitch in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 locations. And they'll generate due diligence starting at the initial location or locations. Once the due diligence is done, assuming it's acceptable and they start to get investment, they may syndicate across multiple other locations to increase the investment and involvement of the larger group. And finally, we have federation. This is where you get multiple groups of different sizes that work together. In essence, when one finds something that's worth investing in, they'll let the other ones know, and they have the opportunity to join in. Typically, the way you get funding, it starts out, it varies by group and type of group, but you start out by getting an introduction. And there's a wide spectrum. Either, it could be somebody or it could all be up, to some big marketplace. So you start with friends and family that or that know people that know, and you get introductions. You might meet somebody fortuitously, right? You're both at the bicycle race, and it turns out that that person is funding companies that do something similar to what you do, and you're running a business that does what they're interested in funding. So things just happen. But also, of course, you might seek out the places that angels might be. There are websites and chambers of commerce and other similar places that you can look for angels, and there are even online marketplaces. So there are sorts of trade shows. There's a big angel show twice a year run by Keiretsu Forum in the Bay Area of California. There are online marketplaces where angels and potential companies get together and so forth. So you can use an existing marketplace. So that's how you get your introduction. And then once you're introduced, you have to somehow get them the information they need. So typically it starts with an elevator pitch, which is 10 seconds. It might get up to 30 seconds, right? So hey, I sell shoelaces. What do you do? Right? Shoelaces doesn't sound very interesting. Well, we sell, shoelaces, we sell seashells by the seashore, which is, isn't that a tough business? There are already seashells there. That's right, but not the best seashells. We sell the best seashells. Whatever that conversation is, you need an elevator pitch that's quick, that's clear and to the point, that shows the value that you bring and gives them a reason to want to talk to you further. Then there's the brief follow-up. You might get several questions, short questions with short answers, maybe 10-second answers, or you might have a 1-minute version of sort of a bigger version of the elevator pitch. That's also fairly common. And at some point, you'll get to a submission form, right? Either you'll have a long conversation and they'll ask you a bunch of questions, say maybe you'd like to come and present, or you'll get to a form. Usually for substantial groups, there has to be a form because they just run into so many potential portfolio companies. A hint, answer all the questions that are asked in the way they're asked. Right? It helps to know somebody from the group, but you can use the introduction process. It helps, bringing clarity to the answers. So don't be obtuse or sort of, not quite answer a question. It's much, much better just to answer the question and bring clarity in those presentations. And then if you can, there's sometimes a qualifying call or other mechanism. You should, try to get a call or a conversation with somebody from the group if you can, just to understand the process and see how it goes. Also, very often these groups have hundreds of people trying to pitch them. So they want to cull the herd. So you have to be able to, be effective on that call and answering their quick questions. Could be a call anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour. At some point, you get an agreement to pitch, right? So they give you a date certain, a place, and a time certain. You're actually going to be somewhere. It's much, much better to be physically present than to try to do this online or over the phone. As much as we like online, whatever, it's just not conductive to closing a sale like this. Meeting people in person, shaking their hand, seeing what they look like, them understanding how you behave, having side conversations and so forth. It just works better. It's very, very hard to close a sale without physical presence, at least this kind. There's often a pitch fee. You might have to pay anywhere from a couple $100s to a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the group and what you're asking for. Very often there's a practice pitch or some sort of a selection round before you give the pitch to the group. And you have to be there at that pitch to have a good chance of winning it. And also these things can be very helpful. It sounds like it's a difficult, hard thing to do, but actually it's extremely helpful to ask questions and get answers. So you want to get the details in advance. What's the audience? What do they wear? What's their background? About their group. If they have an online presence, you can go look and see what a picture of their meetings look like. And if you can see what a picture of their meeting looks like, you know what they're going to wear and sort of something about the forum and venue. And you can ask them. Most angel investors are, they're called angels because they're really not there to pick you apart. They're really there to find good investments and work with companies and help them succeed. So, ask them, and you'll likely get assistance. And of course, you have to be ready for anything they might ask. So, you might take some time in advance and look at their due diligence process. Details might be online. You can ask them, you can talk to them, find out what they're likely to ask. Obviously, the Angel to Exit series talks through this in a lot more detail in some of our other presentations. But getting an understanding of what they're likely to ask is extremely important to having your answers prepared and crisp. Then you have the pitch. You've done all the wind-up. Now comes the pitch. Very often there's a meet and greet beforehand. You can shake hands, get to know people, sort of get some of their questions in advance, see what they might ask, get a sampling, be present, look good, so forth. Sometimes there's a waiting room and a private delivery. And I favor the meet and greet, but whatever they want, it's their group. Typically you get anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. That's about as much time as you're going to get. You'll be probably one of several potential investments that are pitching in sequence, one after another after another. So you want to make sure, because of limited time, that you get to the point quickly. You have to be sharp as a tack, full of energy, and you have to be an expert in your field. You have to know what you're talking about, both technically in terms of whatever it is you do as a company, but also in terms of your company, its function and operation and so forth. And if it takes 3 people from your company to be there to answer those questions, bring 3 people, right? Don't be penny wise and pound foolish in this sense. Your pitch should probably almost certainly say, here's the need, here's the magnitude of the need, here's how we fill the need. Talk about your team, talk about the competition realistically. Don't say we're the only ones. It's so new, nobody else knew about it. What that means is it's going to be hard to find your audience. You got to talk about your finances, what the hockey stick looks like. That's where the income is all of a sudden going to increase dramatically because some sequence of events that you're preparing for has taken place. And now all of a sudden you get traction in the market grows, your share grows, you accelerate as a business, and you're able to multiply the investment by an order of magnitude or more. What's your competitive edge? What keeps other people out of the market? What's your marketing and sales approach? How are you going to sell this? How are you going to bring it to market? How are you going to get this, to the people that can buy it? And then what are your exits? How are you going to, turn that investment of however much into 10 or more times that investment when you sell the company in 3 to 5 years, or however you plan to exit? You're going to get a question and answer period, and you need to handle it properly. And that involves mostly listening carefully to the question and answering it. A lot of people make the mistake in this sort of forum of saying they're just not used to it yet, or they just don't trust me yet. But in these forums, it's really important to actually listen to the question and give the answer. Then, some of the questions, it turns out, might be really insightful. It's not unusual to get a question and all of a sudden realize that the person asking the question had a great idea. They might say, gee, why didn't you take this to the retail market, and hook up with Kmart? I know a guy at Kmart. And he's looking for products just like this. Instead of going through wholesale, if you just go direct to Kmart, you can probably make $10 million of sales pretty quick if you can manufacture it in time. Oh, son of a gun. Wow, that's a great idea. You know somebody at Kmart, let's go. So, listen to those questions. They could be great. And you should always express your appreciation and listen to the resources they provide. Angels, they're not just providing money, they're providing access to markets, knowledge of people, knowledge of products. They might understand more about some technology than you do. And don't forget the follow-ups, because after the pitch, you need to follow up with the people, especially the people that were interested, to make sure that you engage them. Otherwise, you've gotten everybody ready to sell, but you've never closed the sale. So due diligence typically takes place next. And that's, no angel in their right mind will listen to you pitch and say, that's the greatest idea since sliced bread, here's $100,000. Almost certainly they're going to want to know, look under the sheets and find out what's really going on. It very often takes 30 to 90 days, 3 to 7 angels will be involved. And anything where you hesitate to answer a question is going to be viewed negatively. So you really just need to be open and honest with them. Yeah, they know it can't be perfect. If it was perfect, you wouldn't need them, right? There's a reason you're asking for their money and their help, and you need to tell them what the reason is. And if they identify something, you need to tell them, yeah, it's a problem. We don't know how to address it. Or, yeah, it's a problem, but here's how we plan to address it. And, see where it goes. They're going to want to know all the details. And some of them, you just won't have the answers. They may ask you a question you never thought of, or they may ask you a question you knew you didn't know the answer to. So you're going to want to get them the answers as soon as possible. If you don't know the answer right now, say, we don't know that, but we're going to figure it out. Or maybe it's something we're only going to learn that, by how the market responds. We don't know of any way to test that in advance. Do you? If you know a way, we'd love to try it, because it's one of the challenges we have. Identify the unknowns and how you're going to come to know them, and in what time frame. And remember, the question that I'm asking as a potential investor is, what will you be spending my money for? That's a pretty legitimate question. So if you're going to spend it to increase sales, say so. Say, look, we're in the market, we have our niche, we need to quadruple our sales. It's a race to market. To win the market, we need this much money. All right, well, that's a race. I know how to bet on a race, right? It's like a horse race, right? So I look at the jockey and I look at the horse and I say, okay, you look like you're a good sales team. You know how to grow this thing. I'm going to put my money on this horse instead of that one. If you can demonstrate to me, and I believe that the market's going to go, then okay, somebody's going to win. I have a 1 in 3, 1 in 5, 1 in 8 chance of winning. They know it's a bet, right? Because most angel investments lose. It may result in a written report. Sometimes it'll be more than 100 pages. These can be very substantial. The reports, likely involve, site visits. They're going to come and see where you manufacture it, see where you run your business, see what the people look like. They're going to call your references, probably every one of them. They're going to review your accounts. They're going to want to look at the bank information on the piece of paper from the bank, look at your books, talk to your accountant. They're going to do background checks. They're going to try and discuss things with your workers. They want to talk to your managers. They want to talk to previous investors. In other words, they want to know everything you know about your business to make sure their investment is well justified. And they'll come with a team of people if they're good at it, and make sure that they've done a good job of sorting out what's really going on. But also, remember, they very often provide assistance, right? If they say, look, your accounting system is okay, but it's not going to work, to resell it, they need to have, or, you need to be this kind of corporation, or you're going to need this kind of books, or, we use these, this company over here that does these books, and it's particularly useful for investments like this because blah, blah, blah. Listen to them. They're going to bring resources, connections, ideas. They're trying to make their money succeed, to improve their odds of making more money. So the way they improve their odds is by helping you. So listen to their questions and recognize that that's how you succeed. When it comes to funding, they're not just going to hand you a pile of cash. You're going to expect negotiations over instruments, valuations, rights, to intellectual property if you fail, board seats, and so forth. If there are multiple individuals, you're going to expect an escrow fund at a lawyer's office to support it. The money goes in from the investors until the round minimums are met, which has to be a defined number of dollars. At that point, funding becomes available as of the minimum, but there's usually a maximum. So the round stays open for other investors up to the maximum. Sometimes you'll get to the maximum and there will be more investors that want to put more in. And it might be that because of the nature of your business, that more money will help you increase your odds of success. You have to ask the other investors if it's all right to extend the round to that level, because you're diluting their funds. most of the time they'll say yes, because it'll improve their chance of success, and because they know and work with each other. At some point, the round closes. Nobody else can get in at that rate. If you're going to open another round later because you're going to need more funding after you make your goals here, then that's another round, and they're going to be diluted from that round. But the new investors are going to get not as good a deal, because by then you've taken my money and reduced the risk to the future investor. So you risk goes with reward. Also, don't expect to get all the money as cash right away. Typically, you'll have a burn rate, and you'll have to get periodic deployments of the cash based on meeting objectives. So you won't get all the money up front. If you meet this objective, then you get more money. But that also means you need to tell them what's going to happen. And I'll get to that in a second. And of course, the equity interest here is based on the instruments that are used. So once you start getting funding, then there's support and surveillance. So you're spending my money. I'm going to help you spend it well. Right? I have a right and a responsibility to make sure that you're spending my money as well as it reasonably can be spent. And if you treat this as an impediment or as a problem, you're going to get in trouble, and they're going to pull the money. You need to treat it as the assistance that it can be, right? For example, I might know a less expensive way for you to do something just as well as you're doing it today. I might know a way to get a better price. I might know somebody in the industry that has a higher quality than what you were getting for a better price, because I've known them for years. I might know a more efficient process. You might end up with a chemical engineer who knows the chemistry better than your folks know the chemistry, and can says, hey, there's another process that does that better. Right? We're partners now, and we should be working together to help each other. And that's what it is. This is your partner. You should really treat them as your partner, and bring problems to them and let them help answer some of the problems you have. And and remember, they want you to succeed, and they're going to help you succeed. But one of the challenges is the help may come in many forms, and some might not be as helpful as others. So you still have to be polite and friendly towards each other, but sometimes angels will want to visit you too often. I mean, it's their money, right? But probably if they're there all day, every day, it might be more of an impediment than an assistance. So it helps to have periodic contacts. Quarterly or monthly calls are a good idea. Quarterly reports are sometimes required. They're certainly at least a good idea. If you go less frequently than quarterly, individual angels will start to get curious and start to worry. If it's more frequent, it can become burdensome for them and burdensome for you. So you need to set up an expectation and meet that expectation, and keep everybody in touch with the reality, and talk to them. These are people that are invested along with you in the success of your now mutual business. Subsequent rounds are often used. So I've reached these milestones. I knew I was going to need more money. So we've gotten to the point where we need more money, and everybody expects it. They're very similar to the previous ones, but you've already gone through due diligence, so you have to update the due diligence. Most of it's going to remain unchanged, the reason the business exists and so forth, but you're going to learn more, so you'll update that. It's also really critical to meet your objectives with the money that you got. And if you don't, and you don't inform everybody along the way, that's when you get in real trouble. So if you're not going to meet an objective and you see it coming up, hiding that's the worst thing you can do, because you may keep the money until you don't hit that objective, but then nobody's going to talk to you anymore. What you need to do is let them know in advance, hey, it looks like we're going to miss the goal. Here's why. Here's the problem. And they may, by the way, be able to save you. They may be able to help you meet that goal if you let them know in advance, because they may have some tricks up their sleeves that you just didn't know about. Share bad news early rather than late, right? And you need to, of course, obviously manage the expectations along the way. And finally, there's the issue of exits, right? So 40% of exits fail. When I say fail, it means they return less than the money we put in. Whether it's because you didn't meet objectives and we decided to pull the funds, or you spent all the money, you thought it was going to work, you just never made the sales, or the thing that you were doing development on turns out it didn't work. Who knows? About 20% of the exits end up with lifestyle businesses. That is, they're businesses that never grow to a 10x or 20x return. They're returning 20 or 30% per year. They're growing, at a linear rate instead of hitting that knee point on the hockey stick. And so, they're viable businesses, but they're not very good for the investors. So they're either going to want you to, buy back the shares, or, some of them will take a percentage every year. Maybe you have a combination of a buyback of some of the shares because you have good cash flow and decent profits, and then you'll pay off the rest over time at a greater than market percentage rate, and so forth. So these are some of the various outs. About 30% of the exits are small. That is, they're less than 10x multiples, and they're by sale to a larger entity. That's the normal way that would happen. So you typically are preparing for sale from the day you begin, and you found a larger entity, but you can't get 10x. Maybe you're going to get 3 or 4x, and so you sell it. They make some money, but nobody's getting rich, and you're going to have to go start another one, which is not that bad. About 10% exit at a 10x multiple or more. And these are, of course, the ones that end up making the big money for the investors and for the people that run the company. And then finally, it's rare, but every once in a while, one of these companies exits by going public, and you get incredibly high returns. Maybe a few a year around the world succeed in getting to going public and really getting that huge multiple. So that's what the process looks like. I'm going to turn off the recording and take questions from those present.